Five, I guess. Fifth review, the eulogy. Uh, the wrong person's eulogy, and it's your boy Icon with another Netflix television review for you, going over that Black Mirror. And before we get started, hit that notification bell, like it or subscribe. Check out my other reviews for Black Mirror, and let's get started. So this one, this is about a man named Philly, who lives in Brooklyn, and apparently back in the days, he used to date this woman named Carol. They were a couple, they were an item. For whatever reason, they split up, and then in their golden years, unfortunately, Carol had passed away. So a company had contacted Philly, and Phil, and they was just like, hey, like Carol passed away, and like you were one person that knew about her, that was like important to her life, and we just want you to help us create a eulogy for her for the funeral. And he was just like, I don't know if I want to do that because I guess things between them didn't end very well. So they said that they said that, well, what we're going to do is we're going to send you some digital information, like some digital tech, and we're going to use that to help you create a eulogy. And he was like, I don't understand what that means. And they're just like, well, when you get the tech, you'll see. So the technology that they sent to him, it was like this little computer AI device that when he plugged it up to his brain, there was a generated AI woman that spoke with a British accent, and she was just like, oh, I'm going to be your guide, and I'm going to take you, through the imagery to help you, to help us put together a eulogy for Carol. So he said the problem is, he said that he doesn't remember what she looks like. And then she was like, oh, she's like, well, if you can't form these images in your brain, she's like, maybe if you have photos, we can go through some old photos. So he goes in his closet and he pulls out some old photos. The problem is, because the two of them had a falling out, every single photograph that had her like her face on it, he either markered out her face or he like punctured a hole in it, so you just saw her body, you didn't see her face. So, but then the AI was like, oh, we can go into these photographs. So then he was like, how the fuck are we gonna do that? Because the AI generated system, it's able to place him into the photographs so he can walk around. When he's in the first photograph, the AI, generated person who's talking to him actually took the form of a woman, like young, British woman, dark hair or whatever. So she's just like, I'm going to be your guide. And then like they're going through the photos. So obviously they were looking at different photos, and every time they see a photo, you can't see Carol's face because he doesn't remember what she looked like, and they marked her, and he scribbled her face out so you could just see the body. Other people that were in the photo, you could make out those other people. There was this one particular black girl named Emma that she popped up in a bunch of different photos that he kept looking at. And the whole time they were going through these photos, he was like, oh, there's a picture of me and Carol at a party. And then she was like, oh, you guys are standing in the background. She was like, who took that picture? He was like, oh, here's a photo of Carol, playing the cello because she was a celloist, or she played the cello. And it was a photo of him looking at her playing the cello. And I'm like, who took a picture of you looking at her? And then he was just like, oh, I don't even know who took this photo. I don't even remember this photo. But like, but you have the photo. So it was like, that whole thing was like very weird. So they were just going through this thing. And again, like this one particular black girl kept popping up in like every photo because there was like a group of friends and they were all together. There was a picture of them like at Coney Island or something. And, he couldn't see her face or whatever. Then he said, this is where we got our first apartment, and our apartment was blue. He remembered everything about that whole situation except her face. So then he said that they had got to a point where when they had their own apartment, they started a rock band. And then when they were in the rock band, Carol was playing the piano. And then the AI generated person said, well, why wasn't she playing the cello? And he was like, it was a rock band. You don't play the cello in a rock band. And then the AI was like, well, don't you think she would have preferred playing the cello and not the piano? And I'm like, you getting a little testy for like for a generated AI person. I'm like, why are you getting so testy? And then I was thinking to myself, I wonder if this AI generated person is actually Carol, and he just can't remember because he said he doesn't remember what she looked like. Because she took it real personal when he was just like, yeah, I had her playing the piano. So then he was like, like the band didn't work. The guy that ran the band, like he went on to become famous and he ditched him. But then, she ended up getting a job overseas in the UK, performing the cello, like in And was Little Shop of Horror. No, like the thing with the guy with the face and the mask, and I forgot the name of it. Basically, she got a job overseas playing the cello in an orchestra. So, so the two of them, they didn't really break up. Like they kept the long distance relationship. She said, remember, this is back in the day, so there wasn't like the internet or whatever. She was like how she wrote postcards to him every single day, like they always talked or whatever. But he got to a point where like he missed her. He was drunk all the time. He was drinking or whatever. And then he said on his birthday there was a picture of him on the bed on his birthday drinking beer. And so then the AI was like, well, since Carol was overseas, who the hell took, like, once again, who's taking these pictures? And then we come to find out the person who took, I guess, the majority of the photos, because he said some of them he took himself, like the one when they were in their apartment, he took those photos, but the vast majority of the photos that were taken by Emma, the black girl. It was his birthday, he was alone, she spent time with him, they got drunk, one thing led to another, and then the two of them did the deed. Like, he said that he regretted it, and then he was very upset. And then he said that the crazy thing was on that specific day, Carol actually called his apartment. He said that the whole time she was overseas, she never called him. He was like how she never called my apartment because she couldn't afford the long distance fees. He said, but she called on that day to sing to me and to wish me a happy birthday. And when she called my apartment, Emma was the one who picked up the phone, and then she got upset. They even said that there was another photo where the two of them were at a bar because he worked at a bar at one point. Emma worked at the bar too. And in the photo, he was at the bar pouring a drink, and Emma was behind him with her arm around him, and Carol was sitting off to the side, and there was a guy who was trying to like talk to her, try to get her number, and she seemed like she was kind of like creeped out by the guy, but he got jealous that the guy was talking to her, and I guess she got jealous because Emma was too close, and then she found out that he slept with Emma on his birthday, and then she got mad. So then he had bought a ticket to go visit her in the UK. So he still honored that ticket, and he said that he was going to propose to her and he was going to marry her. So he got on the airplane, he flew down to the UK, he met up with her, with Carol, and the two of them met up for dinner. And then he said, when she showed up at the restaurant, when she got to the restaurant, he said that was the first time he had seen her in like God knows how long. He said that he thought that she put on a little weight, but he didn't notice at the time. He said that she still looked beautiful to me. He said, I didn't even notice the weight gain. And then she, and then he had ordered a bottle of champagne, and then she refused to drink the champagne while they were at dinner. And then as soon as he said that, I was like, the girl pregnant. I was like, obviously the woman's pregnant. I was like, you said she gained weight and she ain't drinking. I said, she's pregnant. So then while they're at the restaurant, they're talking or whatever, he said that she was just very like quiet the whole time. And then he pulled out the ring, he asked her, to marry him, whatever. And then when she saw the ring, she just didn't say anything. She didn't respond to him. And then she got up and then she just walked out of the restaurant, and he never saw her again. And then he, that's when he got upset, because he was just like, that's why I destroyed all of her photos. And that's why, like I tried to wipe her memory, because what she did to me, he was like how she broke my heart. She devastated me, and, whatever. And then the AI got upset, and she was just like, she was like, you keep talking about how Carol was a horrible person, how like she treated you, like everything she did to you. He's like, but did you ever stop to think like what you did to her, like how she felt? And then he was like, no, I didn't think about how she felt, because I asked her to marry me and she said no. And then she was like, well, think about it. She's like, use your head. It's like, she was like, how she didn't drink. She said she gained weight. She was pregnant with me. And then he was like, oh. He's like, oh, apparently the AI generated person in the computer chip was Carol's daughter, because Carol's daughter sent that technology to him so she can get information from him about her mom for the eulogy. But she didn't want to go to him herself because I guess it was too painful. She didn't want to hear something that she didn't want to hear. So it was just easier to send like an AI version of her to ask these questions of him instead. And then when they revealed that it was the daughter, like the AI was the daughter, and I'm just like, so why is it a big deal that he doesn't remember what the hell Carol looks like? If you're the AI generated version of the daughter, you know what your mom looks like. So why are you torturing this man? like just let him, like just show him an image of Carol because you're his daughter and you have images of Carol. I'm like, why do you need his specific images of Carol? I'm like, this is crazy. She said that, her mom, when she was in the orchestra, she had a one night stand with one of the guys in the orchestra, and then he got mad. He was like, oh, great job, Carol, like, and then she was just like, yeah, she was following your lead because you cheated on her with the other girl, with Emily or whatever. So the two of them basically cheated on each other, and then she was just like, do you have any more images or something, with her face? And then he was just like, no, because he said that after she left, he went back to the hotel and he was so angry that he tore the hotel apart. And there was one photo that he took of the mess that he made of the hotel room when he tore it up. So then when they looked at that photo, they saw that on the floor, Carol had wrote him a letter. And he never saw the letter because he said that when he got to the room, he got drunk, he tore the room apart. And then after he tore the room apart, all his belongings, he basically just took all the stuff, all the junk that he messed up, he put it in a box, and then he just took it home, and he never actually looked at it again. So then he was like, oh shit, that letter's probably in the box. So he found the letter, he pulled the letter out of the box, and it was a letter that Carol had wrote to him after she left the hotel. The letter basically said, she was just like, Philly, she's like, I'm sorry, but I had a one-night stand, with this man in the orchestra, and I'm having his baby. But she was like, oh, but it meant nothing, Philly. She was like, the affair meant nothing. I don't love him. I love you, And I'm sitting, I'm listening to her tell him this, and then she's just like, oh, it meant nothing to me. It meant so much of nothing that I had unprotected sexual relations and allowed him to shoot his seed inside. I'm like, that's basically what you're saying. Like, you try to tell this man the affair meant nothing. It meant nothing so much that you didn't use protection. I was like, stop the cap. Stop the cap, young lady, stop the cap. So then, but she was just like, oh, she's like, she's like, I want to marry you because I love you and you're my everything. But she was like, I don't know how you'll feel about raising the next man's baby. And I'm like, yeah, he probably would have but the way they portrayed him in the episode, he would have took her back. He would have raised the next man's kid as his own, like a simp. But he kind of dodged the bullet, if I'm being honest. he legitimately dodged the bullet, and he never knew. So then she was just like, oh, if you want to be with me, Philly, she said, meet me at the show tomorrow night, and then we can talk. But because he never saw the letter, he never showed up, and then that never happened. She had the baby, moved on with her life, and then he moved back to America, and they never saw each other again. So that was it. And then after that, he got upset. He was hurt because he never saw the letter. And because he never saw the letter, you could tell he would have taken her back if the two of them would have had that conversation. But then he said to the AI image of her daughter, he went in his drawer and he took a tape out because apparently she, like Claire, she made a tape of herself playing the cello for him to listen to. She created an original song that she wrote specifically for him. And he said to the AI, he put the AI thing back on, he said, let's go see Carol. So, because the AI told him that listening to music or things that she read could re-jog the memory of her face. So when he found the tape of the song that she made for him, he went back into the photo with him looking at her playing the cello. And then when he walked back into that photo, she was sitting there playing the cello while the actual song was playing. And then she turned and looked at him, and then we actually saw Carol's face. And then fast forward, it takes us to her funeral, to to her wake or whatever. He showed up, like Phil showed up at the wake. I guess everybody that showed up at the wake had those same AI images on their brain because they were all looking at their own eulogies or looking at other eulogies that people made. And then when you actually looked up at the altar where the body was going to be of Carol, you saw the daughter up there playing the cello because her mom taught her how to play the cello. She saw the actual daughter. The daughter looked at Phil. Phil looked at her. They nodded at each other. And, that was basically it. And thank you for tuning in. So, so the episode was called The Eulogy, and it was more like his eulogy because they went through this man's entire life. It was like a bad episode of This Is Your Life. And, it was tragic because, like I said, the long distance aspect of the relationship basically affected both of them to the point that and the drinking to the point where like he had a one night stand that meant nothing. I mean, the black girl obviously liked him. I thought we were going to get the reveal that he eventually married the black girl, but that never happened. But the black girl liked him, and then I guess because she was upset that he had an affair with the black girl, she cheated on him with with somebody in the orchestra. And again, I mean, I'm not condoning it, but I get, it's like, if you feel like you need to get your revenge by sleeping with somebody else, I'm like, I can understand that way of thinking. But then how are you going to turn around and be like, it meant nothing, Phil, I love you, but you had unprotected sex with the next man? I'm like, come on. It's just like, if he would have knocked up Emily, like if he would have had a one night stand with Emily, and then when she called to wish him a happy birthday, he would have been like, I'm sorry, babe, I had sex with Emily, it meant nothing, I just got drunk and it just sort of happened. But then he got her pregnant. I'm like, no, Carol shouldn't take him back. It's like, there's no coming back from that. But but it was interesting. Like and again, he basically, this whole thing was basically about him learning the truth. Like, he learned the truth about what happened way back when he found out that she actually did love, because that whole thing ruined his life. Being rejected, his proposal being rejected ruined his life, and then he never got over it, to the point where he like blocked out all those memories, and then he finally found out the truth that she did love him, and then he allowed the memories to return, and then he remembered her face again, and I guess he got to say goodbye in a way that made him feel better. So share your questions, comments, and concerns down below. Let me know what you thought about this particular episode of Black Mirror, and we'll continue to talk about it in the comment section. Check me out on X, on Instagram, on TikTok, and YouTube, where you can leave those questions, comments, and concerns. Check out the previous 4 episode reviews of season 7 of Black Mirror that I have up on my channel, and let's keep rolling, because we got one more episode to go as we conclude Black Mirror. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and until next time, and if you're gonna do the deed, wear a condom. And until then, we're out this bitch.